Joe Kent, who is currently serving as the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, has resigned from his position effective immediately. Let me go ahead and read some of his letter, which is genuinely shocking. President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as the director of National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our country. It is clear we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and the foreign policies that you campaigned on. Until June of 2025, you understood that wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of the precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform, sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. The echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and is the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times, a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what we're doing in Iran, who we are doing it for. The time for bold action is now. You can reverse course and chart a new path for our nation, or you can allow us to slip forward further towards decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration and to serve our great nation.
Dual citizenship is probably not good. There's a lot of people in the federal government and even just state governments in the United States of America that have split allegiances. There's enemies from within. With Midnight Hammer, last year, we struck Iran. Their nuclear capabilities were said to have been obliterated. That's what President Donald J. Trump said. Was this a lie? Why did we attack Iran again? Marco Rubio, I think he's Secretary of State right now, he said, oh, we got pulled into this war because Israel.
It is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first, before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Israel, they attack civilian infrastructure. They blow up a gas field in Iran. So what does Iran do? They say, hey, there's military bases from the United States. Yeah, these Arab countries are hosting them, so we're going to target their civilian infrastructure, their gas fields as well, their oil fields. Because if the Israelis and the Americans are doing it, that means we go tick for tat. The war budget, $200 billion. What's happened since the war began? The oil prices, they've gone up at least $1. I'm frustrated with this because my health insurance also went up this year. We're spending all this extra money in the Middle East to accomplish the tasks and the objectives of Israel. What? This is nonsense. Joe Kent, he went to Iraq on 9 different deployments apparently, and he spent a total of 5 years of his life there. He was fighting proxies of the Iranian Shia regime. He lost his wife to these wars. He was in the administration. He was trying to be like running on President Donald J. Trump's platform of no more wars in the Middle East. But then the president has been manipulated by those close to him.
What kind of pressure does it require to get a president who campaigned against exactly this thing for 10 years to do exactly this thing? What does it take to do that?
I wish I knew definitively. I think there's two potentials or two schools of thought. I mean, one is the media echo chamber, the donors, the way the Israelis come in and kind of launder the information like I described previously. And then the other option is much darker. I mean, we still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying like, you know, the Israelis did this or any of that. But I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there, and there is enough data to at least say that there's a good chance that President Trump feels like he is under threat. We're not allowed to ask, basically, was there any linkage between what took place with Asif Merchant, who was recruited by the Iranians to come to America to recruit proxies to kill President Trump. The FBI put a confidential human source at him. All this is public now. This is all out there in the open. And he's arrested, and then 2 days later, a sniper takes a shot at President Trump. We think Merchant and we know the CHS was talking about the human source that the FBI put at Merchant. They were talking about, hey, we could kill the president potentially with a sniper rifle. But then they arrest him. 2 days later, Butler happens. And Crooks, according to the official narrative anyways, is an enigma. We don't know anything about him. We can't get into his devices. If we did get into his devices, maybe there's nothing there. No more questions are allowed to be asked about Thomas Crooks. The DHS IG is currently being blocked from investigating Butler as well. That's out in the media. That's all well known. Your investigative journalists found that Crooks did indeed have an online persona,
Quite an
online
extensive
footprint,
one.
and he was talking
Yes.
to people. So
Yes.
it's like, why aren't we investigating this? I mean, if
An attempted murder of a presidential
attempted
candidate?
murder of a presidential candidate, and then there's another assassination attempt. There's been multiple public breaches of President Trump's security over the last year. And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors. And he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space. And he said, Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran, very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that, it's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying
No, I don't think you are.
because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. And we knew at the end of the 12-day war, at the end of Midnight Hammer, that the Israelis were going to come back and ask us to go back to war again.
Right.
So we have a lot of data points between Butler, the assassination attempts against President Trump, the breaches of his security, what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Can I just ask you to pause on the Charlie Kirk because it upsets me to
me too.
hear what you're saying, to be reminded that he was murdered, but also to hear you confirm what was reported in the media several months ago, that your office had been blocked from investigating his murder. That does not make sense to me. I don't understand why you would ever turn down help in an investigation from a U.S. agency with a lot of experience in gathering intelligence on things. That's your job.
The FBI will say, and the DOJ will say, that because it's an ongoing case, it's a Utah state case, that back off, they've got it. They've got a smoking case. They've got the fingerprints on the gun, and they've got the kit.
But the FBI was involved in the case.
The FBI was involved. The FBI's basically said that deferring to Utah because it's now a
Okay,
state
but
case.
they've established a precedent for federal investigation of this crime.
Yeah, and the National Counterterrorism Center's mandate is to investigate any foreign ties to see if there's potentially any foreign ties. If we don't find any
Oh.
foreign ties, we back off. What I'm saying about getting into too much detail is there was more for us to investigate.
It's, Afghanistan, Iraq, like this stuff keeps happening.